What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Matt Chat. My name is Kyle, and today I'm going to be casting who I think should be on AU versus the World 2. The first season was such a success that I am positive we will be getting more of these in the future, and I assume we'll start to hear casting rumors not too long from now, so I want to share my cast before that happens. I have a few disclaimers. First, I extended the cast to 16 players. I think there is a real chance that they could lengthen the season ever so slightly, maybe do a double boot in the pre merge, so I went with 16 people. Second, I picked partly who I would want to see, but also who I think is realistic. Someone like Boston Rob is obviously a legend, but he's never going to play Survivor again, so I'm not going to pick him. But hey, they surprised me with who they got for last season, especially on the Australia side, so who knows? And even some of the people I picked, I don't know for sure if they've said in an interview one time that they don't want to play again. I will not be picking anyone from the upcoming season. We have no idea who they are yet, and there was no one from Brains vs. Brawn 2 on the first season of AU vs. the World. Now, I will say there are returning players on the upcoming season. I won't say who they are in case you don't want to know, but I didn't pick them for this cast. They could very well be on the official cast when the season happens, but I did not pick them. Same thing with the people on Survivor 50. I just didn't even consider them, but there's a high chance at least one of them could be on this season. And lastly, I haven't seen every version of Survivor. As big of a fan as I am, there's still a lot out there that I don't know, and they've shown a willingness to pick from all sorts of countries, which my cast unfortunately won't be able to reflect. But with that, let's start with the AU tribe going in chronological order. First, I have Christy. Christy is the first winner of the Channel 10 series, so it makes perfect sense to bring her back as a representative of Australia. She was actually supposed to be on Heroes vs. Villains, but had to drop out last minute due to an injury, which explains the weird imbalance between newbies and returnees on that season. But because of that, we know that she's not only willing to play again, but that production was willing to bring her back just a few seasons ago. No reason why they shouldn't want her back now. I also think that there's more to see from Christy. She's known for her incredible final tribal performance, but outside of that, her game isn't very well respected in the grand scheme of things. Returning for a world season will give her an opportunity to prove that she's a legend in this game. Plus, she's a lifelong fan, she knows the show and the players, and she'd be a perfect fit for this season. Next up, we're not done with season 1 yet because I have Nick on my cast. Nick was the first and perhaps the best ambassador for Australian Survivor. Even if you don't watch, you've likely heard his name at some point in the community or from Rob Has a Podcast. He was personally the first Australian Survivor contestant that I had ever heard of. And because of that, I think he's necessary to have on a world season. Now, he may actually be a little too involved in the community, podcasting about the show and doing exit interviews and whatnot, so I don't know if production would have an issue with putting him on the season. But if they don't, then Nick is an easy casting choice. He's a fantastic narrator, a likable presence, and just very entertaining overall. I don't know why you would keep him off the cast. I suppose maybe his placements would be the only thing holding him back. He's never made it all that far. But as long as he and production are willing and able, he's a lock. He has already returned for All Stars, but he's been so important to growing the show internationally that I think he deserves a spot on this cast. Now, when I was looking at the male legends of the game, especially older ones, it was kind of hard to come up with some, obviously, besides the ones who already returned and may or may not be returning soon. I considered picking someone like Henry or even Benji, and then it hit me. What about Matt Rogers? Matt Rogers is one of my personal favorite players. He was the best part of All Stars, in my opinion. Matt likes to be a dominant player, which isn't everyone's favorite style of gameplay to watch. It was much more fun to watch him play as an underdog. I think he's overall a fan favorite, a recognizable face, one of the biggest blindsides in the Survivor franchise. Yeah, give me Matt Rogers on this cast. All right, my next choice. I'm not sure how many people are asking for this person to return, but I think they absolutely deserve to, and that is Pia. Pia, I think, is often discredited as a winner because she was on a cast stacked with fan favorites and big players. But the fact that she was able to win against such a strong field of players is more of a testament to her game. I don't think Pia had the greatest experience with the show, and she said she wouldn't return for an Aussie season. But if it was 2 weeks and against a cast of international legends, I'm confident she would say yes if she was asked. And I think she could absolutely win again. I think she's a great player and an underrated character as well. I found her fun to watch, and this would be the perfect time for her to return. Next up, I have probably the biggest legend still on the board who didn't return for the first season, and that is Haley. I was surprised to not see Haley on this last season. I assume they asked her and she declined, but I have to imagine she would say yes to this at some point. Haley is a big time fan favorite. She's a popular, well known name and a triple threat of a player. And she's proven that she can be successful on a return. She's the only Australian Survivor winner to survive their first tribal council after winning. But I don't need to convince you why Haley should be on this cast. As long as she says yes, she's an absolute slam dunk for this cast. Skipping ahead here to some of the more recent seasons, I have another pretty big lock, I think, and that is Ferris. Ferris is the second person on this cast who refers to himself as the Smiling Assassin. He and Pio will have to compete for that nickname. And I think it's a fitting title for him. He's cheeky, he's sly, he likes to have fun out there, and he's not afraid to be bold. He and Kirby had one of the best rivalries of all time, so I think it's only fitting for him to come back the next season as her successor. Besides that, Ferris is a likable presence, he's a big personality, he needs to be on this season. If I could only pick one person to for sure be on the AU tribe, it would be Ferris. Now moving on to the most recent season, I was going to pick Miles, but I don't want to use up all the winners. Gotta save some for season 3. So instead, I'll pick Miles' partner in crime, AJ. AJ is going to be on the next season of Traders Australia, which signifies to me that he's going to be in the reality TV casting pool for a while here. AJ is one of the best villains in the franchise, in my opinion. He's a ruthless strategist and won't shy away from chaos. Maybe not quite to the extent of Miles, but AJ stirred up his fair share of nonsense in his season. He's not someone that anyone is going to forget about anytime soon, and like I said, he's not a winner. He needs some redemption. He probably should have won, honestly, but kind of blew it for himself by talking up his own threat level. So for all these reasons, AJ's on my cast. And now for my last pick for the Australia tribe. I went back and forth on this. I very nearly went with Logan. I think her dynamic with AJ would be fun to revisit. But someone who perhaps has even more of a turbulent relationship with AJ, and my final choice for this tribe, is Karin. Karin looked to be one of the more competent players in Brains vs. Brawn 2, although that could have been a byproduct of the cast she was on. But this would be a chance to make herself stand out and prove that she is really a great player. And like I mentioned, her relationship with AJ went from close allies to a complete disaster by the time she went home. I'd imagine there's some unfinished business there that she'd like payback for, and I think she has a lot more left in her game for us to see, so she's my last choice for the AU tribe. So here is the full AU tribe. I think it's a pretty solid group. I may have set AJ up to fail here, but you never know how it would turn out. Moving on to the world tribe, I'm going to go by country, starting with the US, and first I have Kelly Wentworth. Wentworth was in the casting pool for the first season and was pretty close to being on, but dropped out due to a contract dispute, from what I understand. But with perhaps a more equitable group status-wise, I don't see why she would turn this down. Wentworth is a big-time fan favorite, arguably the most popular player to come out of the 30s. An entertaining personality and player, she has multiple iconic moments under her belt, and given the fact that she was so close to being on before, pretty much locks her in for this. Next, now I really had to think about what US players to pick. I wanted to include a recent player, one of the New Era legends, and that is Rachel. Rachel wasn't one of the first names that came to mind, but when I thought about it, she's a great choice for this, I think. Like I said, she's a legend of the New Era, a very popular player from a recent, well-liked season, so I think she's memorable enough, and that is a bit of a factor here when it comes to AU casting. But she's a threat in all aspects of the game, and I think that there's still more for her to show. Rachel is another one, like Pia, where her win is questioned by a lot of fans, so I think that this would be a great opportunity for her to prove that, and she's on my cast. Now for my final US person. When it came to choosing the male US representative, I wanted to pick one of the big legends. And when you take out Boston Rob, the next biggest realistic legend on the board, I think, is Tyson. Tyson is another person who was in the casting mix for season 1, but was ultimately not selected. Now, I don't know if that would cause him to have some bad blood with Australian Survivor, but I have to imagine that he would sign on if asked this time, especially if he's a surefire lock for the cast. Season 1, I get it. If you're just picking one US male, it's either Tony or Boston Rob. And for this season, Rob's not doing it. Tony already played, so Tyson doesn't have as much casting competition this time. And I think he's a pretty safe bet to be on. All right, let's move on to South Africa. I have two names here. Starting off, I have Dino. I was a little surprised that Dino wasn't the South African representative on the first season, actually. Not that he's necessarily the best player from South Africa, but he's arguably the most well known and recognizable player, especially to superfans. Dino is the total package. He's a great confessionalist, ultra strategic, and he improved his game drastically from his first season to his second one. He's someone both casuals and superfans can root for. He's likable, and he's knowledgeable about the players from other countries. Which honestly, I'm not sure how much of an advantage that is anymore. It seems like everybody kind of knows everybody by now and is at least familiar with each other's seasons. But I think Dino would be the perfect fit. And if production came to me and said, you get to pick one person for the World Tribe, I would pick Dino. Now, for my next choice from South Africa, I picked one of the biggest fan favorites in the franchise, and that is Palesa. Palesa is part of some of the most iconic moments from South Africa's most iconic season. She found the first podium idol, she was a part of the idol train at the final 9, she went home with an idol in her pocket, so lots of idol stuff. But she was a raw, no nonsense kind of player and gave great confessionals. Probably her best move came when she convinced people to go to Rocks for her alliance at just the second tribal council of the season. Palesa is someone who most international fans know. Anybody who knows South Africa will recognize her, so I think she's a good choice for this. Now we're moving on to New Zealand, and I have two players here, which might be kind of crazy to have two of them, but whatever. First up, I have Shannon. I think Shannon would be a much better fit for a different franchise than she was for New Zealand. She's a very strategic player who's eager to make moves, and that type of gameplay wasn't respected at all in her season. But she did make it quite far despite that, and I'd be curious to see how she fares against a group of like minded players. I have no idea how many people remember Shannon, even hardcore international fans, so I don't know exactly how realistic this is, but they could make a deep poll, who knows? Either way, I'd love to see Shannon back. She's one of my favorites, and I think that this would be the perfect opportunity to give her a second chance. Now, for my second New Zealand choice, I have someone who is in desperate need of a second chance to prove how good they are, more so to the fans than to themselves, and that is Dave. For those of you that don't know, Dave was on a season with Matt, one of his old high school friends. The two of them obviously kept the secret and helped each other out at various points in the game. Most people remember Matt bailing Dave out of trouble, but Dave helped Matt a fair amount too. Just throwing that out there. Regardless, Dave played a great game but got no votes at the end after Matt revealed their secret alliance to the jury. So I think Dave is a great choice for this season because he already has a built-in narrative. He can prove that he doesn't need any help to make it to the end and that he can play a strong game all on his own. Now for my last pick, I'm going over to the UK. We only got one season from the reboot, but I think it produced some great characters, perhaps the most memorable of which being Christopher. Christopher started the game in a fairly dominant position and then had to play the post-merge from the bottom. His journey was so much fun to watch, and he was a larger-than-life character as well. I could see him doing really well on this type of season, and on this tribe specifically, he's the only person who's by himself. Everybody else has someone else from their country with them. And that could make for really interesting dynamics. I would assume he'd fly under the radar despite being a huge personality. He wasn't able to do that in his original season. He's probably a better player than what his first season showed, and I think anybody who's watched this season would agree that Christopher would be an outstanding choice for this cast. And there you have it. Those are my picks for the second season of AU vs. the World. Please let me know who you would add or take away. I know there are a lot of other names you could put on here, but we'll see how many of these I actually get correct. I'm interested to see if I was accurate at all. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.